This won't be much because I don't have much time. I'm in between classes. I think it's 15 minutes depending on when they ring the bell. But the point of this is to actually be a little bit of a calculator hint. There's a lot of things that can be done with the TI-84 and kids just don't realize it. I mean, if you copy down the twin or looked at the twin, that was just me teaching you how to do everything by hand. You can do number one in a TI-84 just fine by using graphing. So hopefully you caught on that this is X and this is Y. And you're literally putting a negative 0.35 over here on the left-hand side. So I'm going to go to Y equals, and I'm going to put a negative 0.35 there into Y1. In Y2, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug that X value in. Turn that contrast down for you and zoom in. And the X value is 18. So math num n over d. I don't know what k is. That's going to be my unknown, my x. That looks a little better. And here I see this 2x. Well, twice in 18 is a 36, and then plus x. Let me just plug stuff in, zoom 6 it, and then look for intersection. Now, you're going to have to look far to the right. You notice that thing was moving to the right, so you're going to have to go to window and maybe change your x max to 30. But you're going to have to play with the window. You still got to know something. That's the reality of it. Second trace 5, enter, enter, enter. There she is, 24. The number 2, if, and I don't remember if it is or not because I'm exhausted, if a question is multiple choice, you can look for what's called numerical equivalency. And I suggested y'all do things like take a pi and put it into x. Then I'm just going to type in the original problem. So x minus 7 over 3x minus 15 times, because there's a times, and that was 5x to the second minus 125, sitting pretty over x to the second minus 49. So when I get to throw a pi in the original expression, I get that. If this is equivalent, I should get the same thing. So remember that. If it's multiple choice, do things like that. That works for any multiple choice question. If they're asking for simplification or equivalency, ta-da! It may not occur to a lot of y'all, but you could have this had an equal symbol, didn't it? You could have done y1 and y2. I'm pretty sure this is an absolutely hideous graph. We'll have to use x instead of r. Doesn't take that long to type, unless you screw up like me. That was the original problem, y1, y2, zoom 6. Anytime there's equality, you can do y1, y2. And we've got an answer right there. Second trace 5, get close, enter, enter, enter. There she is, negative 1.25, which is what I got, negative 5 over 4. They're the same thing. You can do this one by doing what I talked about, plug in a pi. You can do this one if it's multiple choice. It's a little harder to do. I guess it's worth... No, I'm not going to talk about that one. You can do this one, y1, y2. Number 8's obviously a graphing calculator. You know, number 12 is incredibly intimidating to kids. What you could do is you could take your answer choices and you could graph them and see if they look similar. Because I made 12 multiple choice, so I'm not going to kill you. I think it actually takes longer for a person who understands math to do it by graphing. But I'm going to see what this looks like in a calculator. And I just want to have something that looks a lot like the original graph. It's kind of hard to tell here, but you know, you can see that the zeros are the same. You can kind of visually imagine the asymptotes being where they need to be. You can always just look at the equations that are given Number 11, by the way, is multiple choice. You'd be an idiot not to graph that thing. You would be. So don't be that kid. If you have a graphing calculator in front of you, you graph. When you get on these, algebra. This right here could have been done with y1, y2. That algebra I did. Same thing right here. This could have been thrown into y2, every bit of that, and that could have been thrown in y1. Use that intersect feature I preach all the time. Anything cool? No, that one's pretty simple. Here's something you can do on these. Notice 3. If this is multiple choice, I could just kind of plug those numbers in there and be like, okay, distance is the square root of 5 minus 4 squared plus -1. Not sure why everything's being slow there. This will give me a 1 that I square. This will give me a -3 that I square, and that ends up being root. You can't. Don't think you can't. That is meant to be done with a calculator. 24 would be one of those that you just be a you should be using a calculator. I mean, you should actually be salted that I asked you to do it by hand on the twin. I mean, you just type in y1 is 2x minus 7, y2 is x minus 3, and then you do a zoom 6, like you've been trained to do. Now, one of the reasons I'm actually going over this one is because it's pretty common to see what we call a rounding error in a calculator. So I'm pressing that right arrow until my cursor shows up. Enter, enter, enter. And there she is. 4. Notice that 0001. Wouldn't be surprised if yours says 3.9996. You have to round sometimes. And this particular problem is one of those. Anyway, so when you take your test tomorrow, don't forget about looking for numerical equivalency. Don't forget about y1, y2. That'll probably get you at least a 50. Plus, it's quick. And don't forget about plugging in answer choices. Oh, that was another thing I meant to talk about. I mean, like, look at 23 or 22. If this is the answer, if I should get truth. I mean, if you can't do it, you can do it in a calculator, but a -0 squared minus 3 zeros plus a 0, 0. I mean, that's a true statement. I got to check both equations. A -12 times a 0 squared minus 3 zeros plus a 0 is 0. That's also true. If these things are going to be choice, plug in answer choices. And do remember that this was X and this was Y. You got to plug them in where they're supposed to be. This is an answer choice. Everywhere I see an X, I'm an X. Again, kids, I try to keep it short. Maybe a couple of you will watch it. I don't know. Just little things to remember. Use them test taking skills.